Well, hey everybody, John Rethlin here, and this is a retro review of the WCW Bash at the Beach 1994 pay-per-view. 25 years ago today, this pay-per-view took place, and it featured Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair on a big pay-per-view stage. This is something WWE could have done a couple years prior, but Vince got cold feet, didn't feel the crowd would react appropriately to it, so he went with a much better match in Savage versus Flair, but that was on the undercard, and Sid versus Hogan was the main event. And yeah, it was supposed to be Hogan's final match in WWE. He was going to go up to Hollywood. Then he came back at WrestleMania 9. That undercut Bret Hart's run, and then actually undercut the WWE product for a while, and Vince had to go into rebuilding because he brought Hogan back when he shouldn't have. But that being said, focusing strictly on what WCW did, they did spend a whole lot of money to get Hogan in there. I mean, a shit ton of money. For limited, some dates, but limited dates, because they were still just doing WCW Saturday Night TV, and they were doing the occasional pay-per-views and everything, but they were trying to get in a rebuilding process after business had gone in the complete fucking toilet. Like, WCW wasn't even running house shows for a while. But this got them a whole lot of attention and was showing what a lot of fans, including myself, had known for a while. Now, I was only 13 when this pay-per-view happened, and I wanted to see this match happen, but I knew the tag division, I knew a lot of the roster. WCW roster was really goddamn good. And it was great that even though this is a small card, I think it was like 6-7 matches. I think there was one pre-show match, so technically 7 matches. But this showed how great the WCW roster was. Now, was this a perfect pay-per-view? No, not at all. But that Hogan-Flair match got the press. It got the press talking. It got the fans talking. That crowd was raucous for a lot of the show. Now, yeah, there were tepid reactions to some things, as a lot of these fans just came for Hogan and Flair. Gross. But also just, they might have not known some of these guys, but hey, they got more mainstream attention. It was like, hey, WCW is a pay-per-view, or this is a pay-per-view you should watch from WCW. This is the company you should be watching. We got Hogan. And yeah, they got, some other guys and everything, but they had a lot of young talent. They had a lot of really, really good talent. So, it was, of course, all built around Hogan and Flair, as it should have been. They showed footage from WCW Saturday Night where Sting was injured and had some issue with his eye, a scratched cornea or something, so he couldn't be there at ringside, whatever. We then start with, and they alternated between Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan as a team, and Jesse Ventura and Tony Schiavone as a team. I think Ventura was out for the second and third match, and this was right around the time that WCW parted ways with Jesse Ventura for whatever reason. I don't know the actual reason, but because you can hear one version and you can hear another version, and who knows. I'm not surprised Ventura did not last that long into Hogan's tenure in WCW, given the whole thing about Hogan ratting out the whole idea of a union to Vince, allegedly. But anyway, we start off with Johnny B. Bad versus Lord Steven Regal TV title match. Pretty damn good. There was a lot of confetti and stuff and glitter from Johnny B. Bad's entrance, and they never really cleaned that up for a while, so it was like all in the ring, it was all in the entranceway, it was all around the ring. So Regal, anytime he took a backdrop, he just would get these big pieces of glitter stuck to his back, so it was pretty funny. But Regal could get a good match out of anybody, and Mero, who played Johnny B. Bad character, was actually pretty good. Now, I've never been the biggest fan of Mark Mero, the wrestler. The man himself seems like a pretty damn good guy. But he was in his element here for a good number of years, at least for about, I'd say, 5-6 year period, something like that. He was pretty damn good. Now, yes, injuries caught up with him in WWE, but in WCW, I thought he was pretty good. Now, he wouldn't have been more than a mid-card act, but he was a good TV champion, good mid-card, upper mid-card guy if they really wanted to use him in that role. And Regal got a good match out of him. And Johnny B. Bad didn't look out of place either. Regal was obviously leading him, but Bad did his own stuff and showed and had a pretty good showing here. Regal did make Johnny B. Bad look like $1 million. Now, it looked like Johnny B. Bad might get the victory, but in the end, via distraction, Regal does manage to get Johnny B. Bad rolled up with a pin, so he retains the championship. So he retains the TV title, and then soon after, like everybody leaves, they bring out Antonio Inoki, and they present him with a plaque. Mean Gene presents him with a plaque. There's this one girl standing in a red dress. I don't know who she was. I think she was just there. And for his contributions to wrestling. And then Regal comes out and says, wait a second. I just beat Johnny B. Bad. I was on a tour in Japan and beat a whole bunch of guys. I didn't see you there. And it's a good thing that you're retired, or otherwise I beat you up, basically. And they teased a match. I don't think this ever happened because Inoki, I know, wrestled Flair at Collision in Korea the following year. and I think made occasional match appearances after that. But I don't know if Regal and Inoki ever faced off like in Japan or something like that, or if this is just a way to get heat on Regal. It was a good way to get heat on him. I would have liked to have actually seen that match, even at that stage of Inoki's career. Good stuff. And it was enjoyable. And then we get Vader versus the Guardian Angel, a.k.a. the Boss, a.k.a. the Big Boss Man, Ray Traylor. It's Ray Traylor that I'm talking about. He had a whole lot, the late great Ray Traylor, and the late great Vader. Unfortunately, Ray Traylor had a whole lot of weird gimmicks during his run in WCW, the second run in WCW, because he was in Jim Crockett Promotions for a bit until he went and became the Big Boss Man for a number of years, and that worked out pretty well. It was two big lads smashing into each other. Vader, of course, had Harley Race at ringside. I always thought Harley Race was a pretty underappreciated manager, mainly because he gave credibility to Vader, and I know he managed other people. I'm just saying I mostly remember him for managing Vader. This is pretty good stuff. Big power moves. Vader did hit a moonsault, but that wasn't the finish because Vader had been worked on also, so he was hurt. But then Race interferes, gets tossed off. Race at one point hands Vader a baton, one of those batons you go like this, and it like goes like this, and then you extend it out, police batons. Well, while the referee's down, Guardian Angel, Boss, I'm just gonna call him Ray Traylor. Ray Traylor gets it away from him, and it looks like he's gonna hit him with it. Well, then Vader's in the corner after Ray had punched him for a while, and then Race got the referee's attention, and he saw Ray staying there with the freaking baton. And even though he didn't see him do that, apparently he just decided to DQ him. So that was a bit of a cheap finish, but this was still a pretty good power man match. It was two big hosses. It was just like 8 minutes. So it was the shortest match on the card, but it was still pretty good. I mean, it didn't go longer than it needed to, and it got over the whole idea. And I thought that Vader and Ray actually had a pretty good feud over the course of WCW TV, Saturday Night Television, and a few pay-per-views that they wrestled on. And then we get recaps of the Terry Funk Dustin Rhodes feud, where Terry Funk Bunkhouse Buck had been beating him up, and then Dustin needed a partner, so he got Arn Anderson to be his tag team partner. And the whole idea was, okay, can Dustin trust Arn? But Arn is like, nope, I'm coming back. I agree to this. We're going to turn the beating on them. And what happened? Well, there was a lot of brawling. The crowd was very, very hot. You had Arn keep trying to get in and save Dustin and everything. Then Arn finally got tagged. And then Arn DDT Dustin, to the shock of absolutely no one. I mean, the crowd booed, but I'm like, how did you not see this coming? I mean, at 13, I knew that was going to happen. And I bought into a whole lot of shit and still bought into a whole bunch of stuff even recently with modern wrestling. If any of you guys have watched the channel, I got all angry about some stuff at Extreme Rules. But this is just something where it's like, how did you not see this coming? How in the world, how did you not know this is going to happen? Arn basically got paid off by Terry Funk, Bunkhouse Buck, and Colonel Rob Parker. And, who was a pretty good stable. I mean, it wasn't really around for very long. I did love just Terry Funk in his element here. I always thought Terry Funk so underappreciated for how much he gave to wrestling, and still gives to wrestling. He's debuted in 65, by the way. He's wrestled in every decade since. He's 75 now. I guarantee you he wrestles at least one match next year. He wrestles at least one match, and that way he can say that he was in 7 decades. Now, I don't think Terry Funk's retired. I don't think Terry Funk ever will retire. He should, because he fucking deserves it. But guarantee you he wrestles next year. This was fine. It was just a way to get more sympathy on Dustin and more heat on everybody else. And of course, Arn always worked better as a heel, even though he was very, very likable. And why the fuck was he never a world champion? Arn Anderson should have been a world champion. But anyway, I digress. Sherry Martel and Ric Flair interview with Mean Gene Okerlund. More hype for the main event. We get Ricky Steamboat versus Stunning Steve Austin, WCW US title. Fan-fucking-tastic. Really can't say enough good shit about this. This was good shit. And it just showcased how great Steamboat was even at 40. And I mean, I don't mean to sound ageist, but you always have a thing where it's like after wrestling for so many years, you wonder just how much Steamboat had left. And Steamboat looked just as good as he ever did. And was able to keep up with Steve Austin. Steve was able to get a lot of experience learning from Ricky Steamboat, and it worked pretty damn well. Steve Austin was U.S. champion, been the U.S. champion since Starrcade 93 when he beat Dusty Rhodes in 2 straight falls in a 2 out of 3 falls match. That was a bit of a weird move. But Steve Austin managed to get a roll-up. Well, actually, what happened is Steamboat went for a crossbody, 1, 2, and then, Austin reversed it, 1, 2, but then got his feet on the rope, kind of held tight, 1, 2, 3. So you can call it a cheap finish if you want, but I actually kind of like how they did it. And then, if I'm right, I think at the following Clash of Champions when Steamboat beat Austin, but that's when he suffered that back injury and decided to retire. And then Steve Austin, lost the U.S. title back. Like, I think even he was injured at some point, and they had Duggan beat him in like a few seconds, and it was fucking terrible. This is a great match, though. It's a fucking great match. There are 2 matches really you need to go out of your way to watch. This one and the main event. But really, the whole card is pretty goddamn good. There really wasn't one bad match. And the Mean Gene interviews, Arn Anderson is great, just talking about the money, all that and everything, and screwing over Dustin. The one match I will have some complaints about is the Team of Pretty Wonderful, Paul Roma and Paul Orndorff versus Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan for the WCW Tag Team titles. Kevin Sullivan's brother David, or Evad, he was actually called Evad at one point. Dave Sullivan was an embarrassment to wrestling. Kevin was more of an embarrassment because I think Dave tried and just wasn't very good. Kevin Sullivan, sorry, he was never a wrestler. I didn't care for the hardcore deathmatch bullshit that he did because I feel that hardcore and deathmatch wrestling, I just don't care for it. It's fine if you guys like it. If you guys like it, that's great. I'm not faulting you guys if you don't. Or if you do or don't. That's whatever. If you agree with me, great. If you don't, great. And I know it sounds like I was knocking Orndorff and Roma. I actually think they're a pretty underappreciated tag team. It's just this was about a 20, 21 minute match. It needed to be about 14. This did not need to be as long as it was. Now, WCW did tag team wrestling better than WWE did, more often than not. There were a lot of great matches, from tag teams in the 80s, and especially when it was obvious the Jim Crockett Promotions, versus WWE war was kind of heating up and everything. My issue is this went on too long because Kevin Sullivan cannot work a long match, never could work a long match, never really could work. I don't like Kevin Sullivan, if you've been able to tell, but it was good stuff. There was obviously brawling that you were going to get from these guys. I think that was pretty fucking obvious. And Roma and Orndorff were more of the technical guys. And again, I think Roma gets a bad rap. I don't actually think that Roma didn't fit with the Four Horsemen. That's not his fault, but it just didn't work. But I still think they could have used him a little better. And they separate him and Orndorff, and Roma left after his contract was up, but still, this was a pretty good tag match. But again, if it 5, maybe 7 minutes shaved off, it probably would have been better. Cactus, you could tell, wasn't exactly too motivated because I think this was his last pay-per-view appearance before he left. Went to, I believe, FMW in Japan, or it was whatever the deathmatch stuff he did with Terry Funk was. Because I know he did some of that in between, in between his time from WCW to WWE. He of course had, very, very good run in ECW, despite the fact it was ECW. And I'm sorry, I will take shots at ECW because I know you guys like it. There are plenty of you that do, and that's great. I have my own opinions on ECW, and I will stand by that. But I will not fault you guys for having other opinions. Cactus ends up getting pinned by Orndorff while Roma has his legs pinned on the outside. Kind of the old thing like what they did with Heenan and Rude, where Heenan had Warrior's feet planted down, held down outside the ring. The dreaded apron holding the feet down. No, I'm kidding. It was fine. New tag team champions. I'm not complaining about that. But again, this should have had a couple minutes shaved off. And then we get Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair for the WCW Championship. Shaq in the ring when he's still with the Orlando Magic. It was funny that Heenan said at one point, that championship belt looks like cufflinks for O'Neal. But the difference is he has a, what was it? I think it was like, that's the closest he'll get to a championship or something like that. Or it's like Hogan and Flair have a chance to be champion, but Shaquille never will. It was something like that. That Shaquille O'Neal would never win a championship, and he won, 3, 4? He won 4. He won 3 with the Lakers, and he won 1 with the Heat. He did one. My basketball history is a little fuzzy, but I think he won 1 with the Heat. I also think Shaq would have been an 8-time NBA champion had he stayed in shape and had he committed to being, much more in tune and realizing, hey, I need to get serious about this. It's like he coasted a lot. But anyway, that's another story for another day. The crowd was absolutely wild. Absolutely goddamn wild. And one point, I think, Michael Buffer is a ring announcer. And he said about Hogan, and the announcer said this too, about a 3-year layoff for Hogan. This took place July 17th, 1994. Hogan was still in the midst of having a run until about WrestleMania 8. So he was in the midst of being champion in WWE at that time in 91. And then was champion until, let's see. Survivor Series 91, so that was November. And then lost the opportunity to win the championship back at the Royal Rumble and then face Sid at WrestleMania 8. Okay, so that's about 2 years, and I know I'm splitting hairs here, but 2 years, 3 months. Okay, so he was gone for almost a year. Came back to Raw, it was his Raw debut. He teamed up with Beefcake, who never belonged in the main event. I'm sorry, he didn't. I'm sure he's a nice guy. But then he won the champion. He faced off for the tag titles, Beefcake against Money Inc. And then he won. And then Hogan, they did a DQ thing. Hogan won the title, the WWE title at the end of WrestleMania 9. So, okay, he had like a 10-month layoff, something like that, from Mania 8. Even though I think he worked some European dates, and then took time off. He was going to do Hollywood stuff and whatever. Then, after King of the Ring 93, when he lost back to Yokozuna, he did some more international dates, but was gone before SummerSlam. Okay. That layoff was only about 8 months. Now, I don't know why I'm nitpicking that kind of stuff, because it's like, Hogan, sure, if you want to go from Mania 8 to that point, sure, he didn't wrestle that much. But that's only 2 years. And even then, he still had that stuff. It's like they were just trying to wipe the slate clean from Mania 8 all the way to that point. I don't know why that bothered me, but it just did, because it just kind of negated, even though we'd like to forget what Hogan did in 93 in WWE because it was fucking rotten. I don't know why that bothered me. But anyway, it got the attention WCW wanted. WCW had been kind of in the toilet, even though they had some great talent. Sting, Flair, people I mentioned before, great deep tag division. The TV title meant something. The US title meant something. They had a lot of great feuds. They had a lot of great talent. They had a lot of legends. They had a lot of people who still had a lot of life left, even at later stages in their career. They would get some good feuds going and everything, but they just couldn't get any momentum because Turnerland had done so much damage. The people in charge had done so much damage by booking the thing like crazy or writing the thing bad. Bischoff had to come in. I'm not the biggest fan of Bischoff. I mean, TV character, sure, person, whatever. But Bischoff had some good ideas and did do some stuff. Now, whether they were ripoffs or whatever, I'll get into that in our video. But this got the attention WCW wanted. And the crowd was raucous. Everything was great. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm kind of going off like on a bit of a tangent here, and I kind of am, because with this, there's a whole lot of backstory and a whole lot of stuff. They had Flair and Hogan, and this was the match people wanted to see. And it was absolutely great. There really isn't a lot I can say about it. Hogan did pull out some wrestling moves. Figure 4, he did pull out a cross arm breaker. He sold a lot for Flair. Crowd was insane. You had Mr. T that ran out there a little bit later after being in part of Hogan's entrance. You had Jimmy Hart in Hogan's corner. Sherry Martel, who still looked great even into her 40s and 50s. She was in her 50s actually before she passed away, but she was in her 40s here. She added a lot to Flair's character. And it was just, it was a great, it was the best Hogan Flair match that I've seen. Bar none. It was better than anything they did before. Better than it. And it was better than anything that followed. That's not to say their matches weren't good after that for a while. But this was the best one. And it was great stuff. You had, great momentum switches. It looked like Flair. Obviously Hogan was going to win. And he did. There was this one funny moment where Sherry kept interfering. And then she got knocked off the ring apron. Right into the arms of Mr. T. And Mr. T runs off with her. And Shivani, Mr. T's got Sherry. Heenan, he's kidnapping her. I don't know why. Heenan, even though he was phoning it in a lot in WCW, could always make something great. Hogan wins. Of course Hogan wins. And celebrates. They do a post-match promo. Brian Pillman and Hacksaw Jim Duggan are there. I forgot that Hacksaw had already gone to WCW by this point. It was good. It was a very enjoyable pay-per-view. I would recommend you guys check this out. And you cannot be a fan of Hogan, you cannot be a fan of Flair. But this match was what people wanted to watch, and it worked. It fucking worked. It really did. It was absolutely wonderful. The matches were very, very good. Again, you could have taken a little time off the WCW tag title match, but still, it was what it was. I'm not going to rank it, but it is definitely just a bit above a B-level pay-per-view. If I really did want to, give it a grade, I mean, this got the attention it needed, and you got to see a lot of stars. Maybe a lot of people tuning in WCW for the first time. They were like, hey, I like this stuff. I'm going to stay here. So anyway, yep, that's what I got to say. Agree, disagree, what I said. Do all the stuff. Make sure to leave comments. Make sure to like. Make sure to share. Share the videos. Thank you guys so much for that. And thanks for enjoying the retro content. I will have other retro content. Great American Bash 89 will probably be coming up either later this week or sometime next week. But anyway, I'll see you soon, guys.